Unit 2, Video 2, trace the events that led to the American Revolution. Criticize or defend America's decision to go to war. And then the big one, describe John Locke's views. SocialStudiesGames.net, that's where you can find all the resources. Again, the big theme in this unit is cause and effect. The British will do something, the Americans will respond, the British will then respond to that, and back and forth until eventually we have a war, and we have a new nation, we have a constitution, and so on and so forth. Examples, the British would pass a law and there's a tax, and then you could see a boycott. Looking at the American Revolution scoreboard, so far in the unit we have talked about taxmen. So what bad stuff happened to the British? Well, their tax collectors were assaulted. The boycotts resulted in less money for the British. Also the smuggling, less money for the British government, the British economy. Not good. What about the Americans? Well, they were only allowed to sell to the British going back, so that limited their opportunities to make money, start businesses, to grow their economy. That's really, we mainly talked about that in Unit 1. They can't move west, Proclamation Acts, Sugar Act, tax, quartering. The soldiers were forced into or allowed to live in American colonists' home. And then remember, no taxation without representation. They did not have representation, meaning they didn't have representatives in the government. The colonists didn't have representatives in the government speaking for the colonists, meaning they couldn't make laws that would get rid of the taxes or allow them to move west or allow them to trade with other nations. So we remember last time, the boycotts resulted in the king finally saying, fine, I'll get rid of the stamp tax, I'll lower the sugar tax. Just calm down. Everybody just chill out. But, you know, the king's just not going to roll over. The king's the king. He is the government. He rules the place. So he's not going to let the colonists boss him around. So we are going to get rid of the Stamp Act, which was a tax on printed goods and playing cards. But the king, in response, will issue the Declaratory Act. It's all right, the Stamp Act, it's gone. But you folks need to remember that the British Parliament or the British government or the British legislative branch makes the laws in the colonies in all cases whatsoever. So right now, we're going to make a law that helps you out. But you need to remember, American colonists, we make the laws. We set the rules. We're in charge of the show. We're doing you a favor right now. So get it together, because next time it may not be in your favor. So you may think you've won, but remember, the king and parliament run this show. So I make the rules. Stop misbehaving. And guess what? You know what? Just to show you, I'm going to make some more rules that you're probably not going to like. The Townshend Acts, which is a duty. What is a duty? It's a tax on imported goods. So if you bring something into the country, you buy a TV, a PlayStation, whatever, or back then boots or shoes or sugar. You buy something from another country. When it comes into the country, you have to pay a tax on that. That tax money goes to the British government. This is started by the Townshend Acts. It's a duty. So again, it's another tax on the American colonists. You bring stuff into the harbor, you're unloading it. When you unload it, you pay a tax on it right there. And here's a picture of that. Also part of the Townshend Acts, because the British aren't stupid. The British know what are going on. The king knows that they're smuggling. They know, okay, wait a second, where are you getting that alcohol from? You don't have any sugar. You're not buying sugar from me. You're getting sugar somewhere. Where's this sugar coming from? They're not fools. They know that smuggling is happening. And so the British government needs to crack down on the smuggling. So part of the Townshend Acts, we've got the tax on imported goods, but we got to stop the smugglers. And so in order to stop the smugglers from sneaking goods in, the British government are going to give the British soldiers more power, more authority. And how they'll do that is they will allow searches without warrant. Oh, I think you're smuggling sugar. Stop. I'm going to search you. I'm going to search your home, and I'm going to find this. Wait a second. You need a warrant in America to do that. Not then. Not during the colonial period. The Townshend Acts will bring back the writs of assistance, which allows the British government, the British military, to search your home without a warrant. They don't need probable cause. I think you're a bad guy. I'm going to go through your house and look for everything and try to catch you. And I'm going to do it to everyone because we got to stop the smugglers. The smugglers are leading to allow people to get around the taxes. And we need the taxes. So the British government justify this And obviously, the American colonists are not happy about this. So, hey, I'm getting taxed. And oh, by the way, the British can search me anytime without a warrant. Doesn't sound like we're very free. This doesn't sound very fair. They don't do this to the British citizens. Why are they allowed to do this to the American citizens? So this whole you need a warrant thing, not so much. Not good. This is not good. Tension is going to build. Basically a permanent warrant. They can go into your house, search for whatever you want. This is going to lead to another round of boycotts, cause and effect, action, response to that response to that response, and eventually we're going to have a war, and but we're building. We're slowly heating the water up. I wouldn't even say that it's slowly. So again, if we're looking at the scoreboard, so bad stuff happening to the Americans, tax on imported goods, writs of assistance. So the rising tension between the kings and the colonists, and no one's really getting along, but obviously the American colonists are pretty upset. They're pretty furious, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. I always use that. So Boston, New England is really the biggest boiling point because you have the craziest, the rowdiest people, and you have the laws that are directly impacting New England. A lot of the taxes and a lot of the ordinances and acts and laws aren't affecting the middle colonies and aren't affecting the southern colonies. And even the southern colonies really are relying on the British a lot more. So they're not as, waving angry, look who's talking to GIF, or if you're a GIF person. But New England, that's where the people are the most upset. And so we'll have the Boston Massacre. And here is the famous plate or image. I think did Paul Revere end up making this? I can't remember who did that. Doing the drawing, or it was actually a plate. But anyway, so British soldiers murder, kill, shoot, lead to the death of American citizens. This is one of those things in your elementary, middle school, and even high school, and even in college, where you're going to be taught that these citizens were killed, and this is going to be the spark that lights the fire that's going to lead to the American Revolution. American citizens were murdered in the street by the British. Enough is enough. How many times have you heard that? Enough is enough. Innocent civilians killed in the street. There's going to be change. This leads to the American Revolution. Well, that seems pretty simple. That seems like, wow, okay, not a complex issue at all. We get it. Easy. I can read this in a textbook and I can draw this in a flow chart and completely understand the American Revolution. If it were only that simple, people. It's never that simple. When we're talking about a revolution, when we're talking about a war between two continents, sounds kind of complicated. Seems like there might be a lot of variables. Seems like there might be a lot more to the story. And when it's that simple, it seems like someone has an agenda or bias and is trying to get you to believe something. Then and today, when we have situations like that, when there's a complex, complicated situation, there's always a lot of variables. And when someone wants to tell you that there's just one simple thing, or there's one variable, they're wrong. They're lying to you. They're misleading you, or they're just ignorant. So these soldiers will be found not guilty. Oh my goodness, they killed citizens in the street. American colonists are dead and they're not guilty. How can that be? Well, think about it. How can that be? You're told that these innocent civilians in your textbooks were murdered in the streets, and this led to the American Revolution. But if you look into the history, and this probably isn't going to be on your AP test, you'll find out that, oh, by the way, those soldiers were found not guilty. Now, what people are going to say was, well, that's because the British ran the government. The British had the judges and controlled the government, and they got off. That's always the thing. Well, that's because the government is working with the people that did the shooting, and they got off. You're always going to hear that. That seems pretty simple again, something that could be quite complex. Well, John Adams is the guy that defends them. John Adams is the guy that goes on to lead the revolution. Goes on to be the president, the second president of the United States. Second or third? Second. Second president of the United States. But he helps the British. He's not part of the British government. He's not a part of the soldiers. Well, he defends them because obviously people deserve to be defended in court, but because there's more to the story. Remember, we've talked about this over and over and over. It's wild times in New England. The people are rowdy. The people are drinking alcohol at an insane level. People are out of control. Absolutely out of control. The reason the British are in the streets to begin with is because people are unruly and out of control every day, and you need the military to keep things calm and orderly. And every night, the people get wild and drunk and party and go crazy. And then this night, they got too drunk and they were shouting things and have you seen angry drunks before? Well, you've got a town, a city, a region of the country filled with them, and they're assaulting British soldiers, and one of the British soldiers shoots back, and then all of a sudden we have dead citizens. So the one side of the story is going to be, yes, the government murdered citizens. The British government murdered innocent civilians. And we hear that theme throughout. Sure, but maybe there's another side of the story. And in this example, the other side of the story is they were out of control drunks that were attacking soldiers, and the soldiers were defending themselves. So whether it was right or wrong, it was self-defense. And the government found them not guilty. And I know some people don't want to hear that. I know it doesn't line up with what you believe today and in the past when you're trying to create this story that is American history. It's messy, folks. And if you want things to be black and white and things to always fall on your side and everything to fit neat and orderly, it does not. It never will. You have to stop looking for good guys and bad guys. I'll say that again. Stop looking for good guys and bad guys. Stop looking for history to be black and white, right and wrong, and everything to fit in an orderly manner. And everything that you believe today should be linked up to the way everything was supposed to be in the past. It's not. It's not that way at all. And you are going to be challenged. And sometimes it's best to just sit back and try to understand all sides and maybe not take a firm stance either way. That's your Boston Massacre. Tea Act, 1773, raises a tax on tea. Technically, they lower the price of tea, so the price actually stays the same. But don't tell the colonists that. They're already mad anyway, so you raise the taxes, but the price is still the same. We lowered the price to offset the taxes. Yes, higher taxes, but we lowered the price of the tea, so it's still the same. Colonists, why are you getting mad? I don't know, we're just getting mad. We're just mad at everything. Sounds like today, that's what happened. So the Sons of Liberty, who are mad at everything, patriots / domestic terrorists, they have the Boston Tea Party where they go onto the boat dressed up as American Indians and they throw all the tea overboard, cost $1 million worth of damage. Now the king's mad. Everybody's just mad. Everyone's just so angry. So we got the action, we got the response, and then we got the response to the response, and then the response to the response. Welcome to the Unit 2 American Revolution. I've had enough of this. So the colonists said enough is enough. Now the king's saying enough is enough. Well, can both sides say enough's enough? How does that work? Anyway, so he will now respond to the Boston Tea Party and the British government with the Intolerable Acts. A bunch of stuff in here. Let's go into what is in the Intolerable Acts. Well, the first thing they do is they shut down Boston Harbor. So no ships are coming in. So, you're going to smuggle stuff? Sorry, no one's getting in. You don't want to pay taxes and you want to smuggle things in. Well, here's the problem. We'll solve this real quick. Guess what? No ships are coming in at all. We're just going to shut it down. You don't want to pay taxes? Well, guess what? You're not going to sneak stuff in anymore because the harbor is closed, folks. Oh, you wanted your alcohol? Ain't happening now. Oh, and guess what? Quartering is going to keep happening. Now, this is also called the Coercive Act. So the Americans call it, that's the Intolerable Acts. Well, the British name for it was not much better, the Coercive Acts. And by the way, you know that land north of America that would have been United States land? Guess what? We're giving that to Canada. Britain says, guess what? This is going to Canada. It's not yours. You can't move there. It's a separate country for those who like to behave and follow the rules. And guess what still exists today? Canada. So maybe if the people in New England could have got their act together, America could own Canada today. But guess what? Some drunks in Boston just couldn't calm down. And they had to destroy things and burn things and attack things. And so now Canada gets Canada. That could be ours. And then you've got... if a British soldier messes up in America, well, they get to stand trial over in England because we don't trust your American trials. And then, obviously, so we got the quartering, we get the British soldiers get to have trials everywhere else. You basically don't get to get government meetings in the college. Basically, you get to do nothing. You get nothing. All right, so Boston Massacre, Tea Act. Oh, yeah, Boston Tea Party. Well, that was bad for the British. Oh, but then we got all this other stuff. Harbor's closed. More quartering. Canada goes to Canada. Unfair trials. Massachusetts no longer gets a government. So then John Locke steps in. John Locke comes up with some ideas about the government. We'll go real quick here because I know I'm running long. He looks at what we've got with this government, says this king making all these things. It doesn't make any sense. Why is the king the king? Oh, because he said God picked him. And who does the king help? The king just passes laws that serve him. So, God picked him? That don't make any sense. God picked the government, and then the government just basically serves the government. They make laws that help themselves. That's not the way it's supposed to be, folks. So John Locke says, here's the way it's supposed to work. Get rid of the monarchy. What we need is a government ruled by the people. The people will elect the government, and the job of the government is to serve the people, not the government serving the government, not the king serving the king, and not the God picking the king that serves the king. What happens is the people select the government that then serves the people. Now, how does that government serve the people? Perfect. The government has one job. One job. The government isn't supposed to do a bunch of stuff like it does today, according to John Locke. It's very simple. John Locke's vision of the government is the government's job is to protect your life. Make sure no one kills you, so no one can take your life. We got a government. And the reason the government exists, these three branches of government, make sure that your life is protected. Make sure that your liberty is protected. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, whatever. You are a free person. The government's job is to make sure every day when you wake up and you're alive. And the government's job is to make sure that no one's taking away your freedoms. And then the third and final job is the government's supposed to protect your property. That's it. That's the only thing the government's supposed to do. Hey, are they supposed to build a baseball field? No. Are they supposed to build roads? Not really. I mean, you could stretch it, but no. What's the government supposed to do? Are they supposed to give me free food? No free food. What's the government supposed to do then? Anything? Yeah, almost nothing. John Locke says, here's the job of the government. We created a government. We're going to create a government, make sure no one kills you, make sure that you are free, and make sure they protect your property. That's it. Simple. That's it. We don't want to give them a bunch of stuff because once they get a bunch of power, they start to do too much. That's it. We like this Locke guy. All right, socialstudiesgames.net.